Hey guys, Matthew here from the Adventist History Project. Just returned from the Women in Seventh-Day Adventist History Conference, which our friend Michael Campbell organized. Very excited. It was a fantastic event. A lot of great speakers, a lot of great information, a lot of great conversations in hallways and whatnot. And a lot of that I'm going to be sharing with you in one form or another over the next few months. But while we work on that, I wanted to share with you a devotional that Laura Wibberding did on Sabbath morning. She is a professor at Pacific Union College, and it was just so on point that I asked her, can I go record this devotional with you and get it up on YouTube as soon as possible? Now, keep in mind, her audience is the men and especially the women who were present at the Women in Seventh-Day Adventist History Conference. But I think there's a lot of great points here that will touch everybody who watches it. So without any further ado, here's Dr. Wibberding.
What should you do when the cause that you believe in doesn't believe in you? What if the mission, the organization that you've committed your life to, doesn't make the same commitment to you in return? This weekend, we've been talking about women in the Adventist Church's history. We're celebrating their lives, not just what they achieved, but also what they've endured. Evangelists, doctors, editors, teachers, pastors, missionaries, activists. None of their stories are the same. Some of them dealt with only low pay and lack of resources and support. Others also had to manage racism, disability, poverty, or open hostility. But among all of those various unanswerable questions they dealt with, they did have this one in common. How do you relate to either a church organization that doesn't fully support you or pay you, or a public that overlooks or overworks or under-resources you because of your gender? I am supposed to be giving a devotional today. What I want to do, actually, is talk to you about devotion. The stories that we've retold about Adventist women, the lives of service that we celebrated, these are all acts of devotion. It's the best word I have to describe the kind of commitment, the kind of passion that Adventist women have given their work and their ministry. And they were often not well rewarded for their labor. Anna Lula Joseph Ritchie had her fiance break off their engagement because she was going to preach. In fact, he gave her an ultimatum. He said, if you preach that sermon, the one she was supposed to give the next morning, I'm not going to marry you. So she didn't marry him. Now, she did find a better man, one who actually built their house big enough so that they could have church services in their living room. But one of the reasons he did that was because, although she was employed as a pastor by the conference, they would sometimes drop her from employment whenever there was a man who needed the job more. Minnie Sipe wrote her autobiography because she needed some extra income, and selling a book was going to help her out. And when she got married again after being a widow for many years, the conference decided now is a good time for her to retire. I guess because she had a man now, she didn't need the job. Minnie Hawkins Chrysler had her work as a periodical editor credited to her husband's name. Jenny Ireland planted and pastored the first Black Seventh-day Adventist churches in the Western U.S., but instead of pastor, Willie White would refer to her as the little mother of her churches. Countless missionary women, probably thousands of them, have been completely hidden from history. Their life's work was reduced to 2 words: and wife. Elder so-and-so and wife. Dr. so-and-so and wife. And you know it too, Adventist women. We live in a different era, but I would bet that all Adventist women have not always been well rewarded for their labor. Some of you may have been overlooked for jobs for which you were well suited. Some have been condescended to or expected to carry extra tasks because you're a woman. Bring the snacks, clean up after the meeting, type up the notes. You may have been excluded from professional relationships or mentoring by male coworkers. You may have had your social or your physical boundaries disregarded. And I'm sure every Adventist woman out there, everyone who's gone to work where you have to stand up in front of people and speak to them, has done this thing. There's this thing that you do where you look in the mirror and you scrutinize your outfit and you say, did I get it right? Is this feminine enough? Is this too much? Because you know there's someone out there who will disregard what you're telling them because you either overperform or underperform your gender. And I don't have to ask why you do it, why you deal with the frustrations, why you still go on with the work. Our service is an act of devotion. And this doesn't have to be devotion to an organization. We all know that our churches have not always, in every time and every place, lived up to their ideals and earned that devotion. Adventist women today serve for the same reason Adventist women have always served, because we believe. Adventist women in our history were devoted to the message and to the mission. They were devoted to the hope of making the world better. They were devoted to their Savior. And by all means, I'm not saying that being loyal and silently suffering are the lessons we should take from their stories. We've honored many women who have put up with conditions that we wouldn't have endured now. But there's more than one way to show devotion, too. Resistance and advocacy are also acts of devotion. 50 years ago, in 1973, Mary Kay Silver, now Mary Kay McLeod, sued the Adventist publishing company that she worked for because of their unequal pay practices. The church at that time still used a pay scale based on what they thought you needed. If you were the head of the household, they gave you more money, and they generally assumed that men would be. So when her husband lost his job, they decided that they were going to live on her income while he went back to school. And Silver went to the press manager, Pacific Press here, and asked for the head of household pay. After all, she was financially the head of her household. The manager refused. He said, if I gave that to you, I'd have to pay the same to all these other women in the bookbindery. And when she protested, and the church organization backed him instead of her, Silver found herself filing a class action lawsuit representing not just herself, but all of the underpaid women at the press. 80 years ago, in 1943, a group of Adventist lay women took action about racism. On the previous meeting, we heard about the story of Lucy Bayard, a Black Adventist woman who was denied admittance to the Adventist hospital because of her race. That story had come after a history, decades in which Black Adventists, especially in the DC area, had given their tithes and offerings to support church institutions, to support a college and a hospital that they couldn't attend. And there were talks about creating facilities for them as well, but somehow those always got pushed down the road, down the priority list. When they learned about Lucy Bayard, these Black Adventist laywomen decided the time was now. Alma J. Scott, Valerie Justice, Wilma Anna Dotson, and Eva B. Dykes, along with two men, created a committee to protest for change in the church. Any one of these women could have simply given up. Indeed, there were church leaders who were hoping to push Mary Kay Silver out of the church, but she stayed, working at the press under hostile conditions for years as the lawsuit played out. Scott, Justice, Dodson, and Dykes also could have walked away from the Adventist denomination. Indeed, an entire Black Adventist congregation, the People's Church, had done just that. But they stayed. Activism is hard work. You only do it for a cause you believe in. Seventh-day Adventist women have always served the church. Some broke out of the boxes their gendered expectations in order to do it. Others worked inside the boxes. Some served in spite of the inequalities and the slights, and others pushed back and insisted on change. All of them served the message and the mission that they loved. We stand on their shoulders. As Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and protector of our faith."